This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you very much. Welcome back for those that are back again. Clearly, even the sunshine doesn't give you something better to do, but we're glad you've come. And for those that haven't joined any of our webinars, all of the ones we've done so far are available on our website, and we can provide that link. And we've got the video shared on YouTube, and we have the slides available from the website. So today we're talking about marketing, and that is not my forte. So I am just going to help facilitate the chat function and ask questions as we go along on your behalf and bring you in to ask questions yourself. But I am going to hand over to my colleagues. So Sarah Booth. Hello, Sarah.
Hey everyone. You can't talk back.
Hello, you all right?
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
That's okay. Cool.
So Sarah's in control. So she's gonna go through the slides, and she's also joined by colleagues Sophie Meering and Vicky as well. So Sarah, I am going to hand over to you, and I will monitor the chat function. So if anybody's got any questions, please put them in the chat function, and I'll raise them as we go along. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Cool. So as Aaron says, we are just going to run through, there we go, developing a marketing strategy. Probably most of you are already doing this in some form or another. It's not really rocket science, a lot of it. It's just about taking the time to put a plan together. We're going to cover it probably in a very basic format for this one, just because we don't know really where to pitch it. A lot of the subjects in marketing, we could run individual webinars on in reality, in terms of, you know, how to approach media. Social media is definitely a section all on its own, but we're going to try and cover all the basics today. As Aaron said, ask questions as you'd like. We've got Sophie on the call, who's our social media expert, and we've got Vicky also, who is our magazine editor and puts our members' e-zines together. So we're all here really to answer any questions. We'll try and make it interactive at points. So we've got a few little tasks either for you to think about and go away with at the end of today, and we'd also like to encourage you really to just share some of your stories about how you've marketed your clubs before. And then we'll also talk you through some of the sort of toolkits that we're planning to prepare, fingers crossed, and hopefully when we can return to delivering beginners courses and have a goes, particularly seeing as we've lost the big weekend this year. So hopefully by the end of today, you'll kind of understand the basic principles of a marketing strategy, why it's useful to just sort of take that time to plan what you'd like to do across your season and who you're trying to aim it at. Just using a very basic sort of framework that anyone can really put together. We're just going to run through some of the different channels that you can use, and we can talk about how we've used them at Archery GB. And also just we'd like you to share any practical tips that you've done for your club that you've seen have really worked well. We've kind of done the introductions. We've kind of covered that. So as you can see there's a huge amount of different channels that you can use in your marketing. So we've kind of narrowed it down to the key ones. We appreciate that a lot of you are volunteers in your clubs and you don't have time. So we're going to focus on sort of the more popular ones that if you haven't got much time, you're better to focus on. You're better to do a couple well than try and do too many. So really, marketing basically is the management process for identifying what your customers want and then being able to satisfy those profitably. And what we mean by that really is knowing what your members want from you and who you're trying to target, and then make sure you're offering the services that they need, so that then your long-term viability is there, because they'll just keep coming back. So I'd like you to think about what marketing means to you, and also, has your club already got any kind of strategy or marketing plan? And there we go. It's a plan of what, how, and to whom your club would like to market it or promote itself. Making sure that you're focusing on the right people at the right time and in the right way, and it just gives you a little, it gives you an ability to kind of plan ahead, and also makes the most of any time or resources that you've got, and any money if you have got any money. But there's lots of free things you can do, which is great, or very inexpensive things you can do. And also it will enhance your club's reputation in the local community. It will just give you that professional edge. Obviously, in archery, you're not just competing against other archery clubs, or hopefully you're not competing against archery clubs at all, but you're competing for people's leisure time. That could be cricket, it could be going to the cinema, all sorts of different things. So you've just got to kind of work out what your club can offer your community, and then make sure you're selling yourselves. So first and foremost, trying to get your offer right is one that you need to look at, and we'll go through that a bit later. So and you can utilize a lot of the programs that we've got here. So for instance, on Target, whether you're trying to get new junior members, more women and girls in your club, it could be a whole host of things. And then it's good to write down what your goals are and who you are trying to target, so that at least you know when you've got there. There we go. So who do you want to attract? You've got participants and members. It could be coaches or officials. You might not have enough level 2 coaches in your club, and you want to encourage members to go through that coaching pathway. It could be volunteers. Lots of clubs obviously need huge amounts of volunteers to deliver beginners courses and have a goes. There might be sponsors to help you keep going, or funders in terms of, applying for Sport England grants and things like that. So in marketing, we often refer to the elevator pitch, and it's a really good place to start. So if you were stuck in an elevator with somebody and you had 1 minute to sell your club, what would be the unique selling point that you could think of? Imagine that they're a new member, and what would you say to them to get them to come along to your next have a go? Does anyone would like to share their idea? You can just unmute yourselves. No, quiet.
Well, we could always pick on somebody, can't we, Sarah? So
well, you can do that.
And she probably knows who I'm going to pick on straight away. So Susan, come on, tell us about your club. What would you do if you were trapped in an elevator?
I can't believe you've picked on me. Sure. So if I was trapped in an elevator, I would say something like, come to Northampton's longest running archery club, where you can meet new people to socialise with whilst doing some archery, and add a bit more waffle in.
We're always good at waffle, marketing folk.
I have to plan waffle though, that's the only thing.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm sure Longmynd archers will have some good ideas, because I know I've been to your big weekend club and you've had lots of people there. Silence. Okay, we can move on, but it's a good thing to think about, the elevator pitch. So it's just thinking about what will make your club stand out, and why would somebody attend your next sort of have a go. And I'm sure you're selling your clubs all of the time to lots of your family and friends, and word of mouth is such a key part of any marketing plan. encouraging your members to speak to their friends and get them to try and join archery is always a great first step. Page down, make sure we're not moving. So the marketing mix, this takes me back to my university days. So basically there are 4 P's in marketing in a very basic setting. So you've got your product or your club, and we just talked about your unique selling point. And what sort of customer experience can you offer? So if you said you wanted a lot more young members, which a lot of clubs tell me they do, you've got to think about what would appeal to young people. Sometimes you have to push yourselves out of your comfort zone. You're very unlikely to retain or attract young people if when they come the session isn't fun, or you can't get them into having a bow in their hands quite quickly. So it's just making sure that when you're looking at your new audiences that you'd like to attract, that when they get there, it's going to actually appeal to them. And that's kind of how you need to look at your image. How can you make your product different? So if you do, so you know, what sessions can you create that would be more fun for young people? Getting your balloons. I mean, this is kind of getting into Aaron's territory really in terms of his on target youth program, but it's just making sure that whichever audience you're going to go for, you need to make sure that your offer is going to reflect that audience. So if it's for if you're trying to get, you know, target people who are of the older generation, that the offer you provide on that night is going to meet their needs. And then obviously you've got price. So how does your price compare to your competitors? I mean, it's slightly different for an archery club, obviously, because you all have a very different pricing model. And I don't think price necessarily is the key factor as it would be in sort of other products or sporting events. But just making sure that if you are in an area, or you're trying to get a more diverse type of person to your club, that you've got a pricing model that reflects that. Place, do you know where your audiences are? So can you link with a local primary school? Can you link with your local old people's home if you want to get into that community side of things and encourage more people along? And also when they get there, what is your offering on the day? So what's their first impressions going to be? Do your facilities sell your club well? Is it nicely kept, nice and tidy? All of those types of things that you just, doesn't sound like marketing, but first impressions count. And then obviously what we're going to talk about today more is around the promotion. So how best to promote your club, what channels can you use? Have you got a club logo? Do you have a social media page? Is your website up to date? All those types of things. That's called the marketing mix, the 4 Ps.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's Sue from Longmynd, but she put up a note saying there about being all inclusive, and that is obviously one of the unique selling points of archery, is that it can be done by nearly everybody. I'm sure there wouldn't be anybody we couldn't put a bow and arrow into their hands and get them shooting at some kind of distance.
Yeah.
Obviously that brings with it that unique selling point of being all inclusive, means that we can just go out to anybody and promote the sport to anybody. Does that sometimes have a negative impact, or is there, as you said, sometimes you might want to attract more juniors or more adults or more senior adults, or women and girls, whatever? Should you have a plan for each of them? Should you just have a plan for one sector that you'd like to increase?
I think it very much depends on the individual club, and all-inclusive is a term that we do use a lot in archery because it is. But when you scrape, and you'll know the conversations we've had on this, when you scrape that down a level, there is actually quite a lot of detail that you need to be able to deliver to be truly all-inclusive. And as a sport, we are addressing some of those things. So if you want, you know, it's a phrase that we can throw away quite easily, all-inclusive, but you know, to be truly all-inclusive, that's making sure that if you want more women and girls and they turn up, that, you know, you're not making it, there's no sort of derogatory comments made, or there's or if you want more disabled people, that they have got access, and you know, if they come in and they need adaptive equipment, you've got a coach there that's confident to be able to do that for them. So I think yes, we are a really all-inclusive sport, and we like to use that phrase a lot, but we just need to be mindful, especially when you're looking at different audiences, that you have got to be prepared for whoever might walk through that door, and that might mean pushing your club out of their own comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, I think all-inclusive is a good one, and we are all-inclusive, but there's certainly some clubs that are more inclusive than others, I guess, and it's just making sure that you've done the detail behind the phrase. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Cool. So before you start your plan, you kind of need to just set out what you want to achieve. And as we've just said, it can be a very wide scope, which is, you know, I want to be an all-inclusive club, but then you need to unpick what that actually means and how you need to get there. Or it might be more focused on certain areas. And to help you with this, Aaron, for how many years? 10 years or so, has been working on his On Target development programme. And he has split that into some sections around young people, obviously our community specialism and our performance specialism as it stands. So it's quite good for the committee or whoever it is that's working through your marketing strategy to just sit down and actually think about who it is you want to attract and what you want your club to be. And on there we've put a few examples of sort of mission statements that each club might have, and then it's just making sure that whatever activity you do always ties back to those visions. So at all points, it's quite easy in marketing to kind of go down different channels, you know, and that's fine. It's good to be flexible, but every now and then it's just good to go back and review, did we actually meet our first vision, or has it changed? And just keep an eye on whether you're managing to achieve what you first set out to achieve, really. So you can all sort of take the time to read those, and we'll make these slides obviously available afterwards to you all. But it's just good for you as the marketeer to know what your vision is, but also to get buy-in from the club. And that kind of goes back to the last point. The club committee might say we want to be all inclusive. But there will be some steps that you need to take to get there around, you know, making sure that whoever comes in that door, then you have got a clear offer for them. Or it might be if you want more junior members, that you need to create some programs that will attract juniors. So it's just being clear and making sure that you check back regularly that you're hitting your vision. That's Aaron putting a question up. So once you know what you want to achieve, you can go about starting to develop your plan. I'm sure you've all heard of SMART goals lots of times, and we're going to just do this in a very basic format really, but when you're developing your marketing plan, you need to identify sort of what your objectives are underneath your vision. So kind of how are you going to get there? So you might want to be grow your junior membership, or just generally attract more members. And then to make that smarter, you could split that into the categories, and it just makes it, by breaking it down, it keeps you focused on what you're trying to do. So it could be just increasing your junior membership by 20% over the next year, and that will help you attract more members. You could have multiple SMART goals, so you could have increase your junior membership by 20% and increase disabled members by 5%, or whatever they might be, but it's just good to set them out. Make them specific so you know whether you've reached them or not. Make them measurable, and we'll talk about how we can put some simple measures in later. Make sure they're achievable, because otherwise you can quickly become demotivated, and that they're realistic and obviously timely. So for the SMART objective of growing your junior membership locally by 20%, you then start to develop what strategies that you can do to get there. So you could focus on getting more juniors into your lower age category and making sure that you retain them year on year, and by then you'll increase your membership. Look to develop your relationships with your local primary schools. I know Longmin did that for the big weekend. They managed to get the school to send out a email out to all the pupils there, I believe, promoting the big weekend last year, and that worked quite well. There was lots of young people at the Longmin big weekend, or just targeting families, providing family membership, making sure you've got facilities to bring in the juniors. So it's just really thinking about how can we, if you're trying to attract more juniors, what is going to appeal to them, and what sort of simple steps can you start to take to reach that audience. And then you can sort of split it out between your clubs, so it's not all the same people. So you know, you can nominate people that get tasked with creating offers. So either asking junior members to introduce a friend, and you by that you might get an extra 20 or 10 junior members, building the relationship with primary schools, maintaining your social media accounts. So if you're trying to get more young people, it's just making sure that the content that you put out on social media reflects that. You know, lots of fun pictures, balloons, colourful things, things that will attract parents of those juniors to say, oh, we'll go and try that, that looks fun and something that my child would like. And just making sure, again, that you're reviewing your facilities and identifying any improvements that you might need to make the club more friendly, or introducing a new membership category that you might not have before for families, to make it more affordable for them all to come together. And then really, once you know where you want to go, and you've got your SMART goals, so you'll know when you've got there, it's just looking about how you might get there. And this is where there's a plethora of different options for you. And I'm sure most of you are already using all of these. It isn't rocket science. We're just going to go through a few of them in a bit more detail. And again, it is quite basic, but it's a good place to start, just making sure that you've got all of these areas ticked, or the areas, or you pick the ones that you think are going to get the best response for you. So before we go too heavily into the channels, I just want you to have a little think about what channels you're already using. You will already be putting posters out. Most of you are likely to already have a Facebook or a Twitter account. You'll have a club website. So you'll already be doing lots of marketing. So it's just, I'd be interested to see which ones you find are working for your club at the minute, and which ones you think you could improve on. Obviously, some are better to reach different audiences than others. So, you know, as we go through this, we'll talk about how you can use certain channels to reach certain people. But before we get into that, I'd just be interested to see really from you guys which ones you're already using and how you find them, and yeah, get a bit of your take on it really.
When I asked who had got a plan or anything like that, Rob, you came forward and said that you organise beginners courses and have a goes. Would you mind unmuting yourself and having a chat with us, letting us know which of those things that you do are most effective?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Rob.
Can you hear me first of all? My mic wasn't working earlier.
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, we don't really have a formal marketing plan. We're quite a reasonably small club, and we have to keep our numbers to the size we are because of our facilities sort of limiting the club size. So we have a beginners courses probably once or twice a year. We advertise them quite last minute, and we usually get quite a good take up on that. We use Facebook probably as our main sort of conduit. We use the club website a bit, but that's not really marketed and doesn't get a lot of hits other than through Facebook advertising, posters and things in the local supermarkets and shops, and just word of mouth really to get interest in that. Obviously things like the big weekend and other have-a-goes would go the same way. And like Sarah said earlier on, if we're targeting sort of a specific area like juniors, we will go to the local schools and sort of let them know what's going on.
Sounds really good. Is there anyone else that's used anything different? Declan, you put a comment in.
Yeah, so last year we had a bit of a trial with we basically signed Cleve Archers up to all the local news and views groups, and we posted in there, and we had beginners courses and have-a-goes coming on, and that got quite a lot of more attention than just from our own page.
Declan, hi. When you say local news groups, do you mean the ones on Facebook?
Yeah, the sort of community groups that are on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know my wife has her own business where she, and she does that a lot as well. Obviously, you need to check whether sometimes whether the admin of that group doesn't kick you off. But as long as you've checked and made sure you're following their rules, then yeah, no, she does find that that's a good thing as well.
A lot of them were quite happy for us as a sports club to do it, even when they had sort of rules around companies doing it.
Okay, yeah.
Most of them were fairly happy when we sort of explained that we were just the local archery sports club. They were quite happy for us to put them on anyway.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Andrew, Facebook and website at the moment. So does that mean they just fill up just from those sources?
Yeah, what we do is we just basically put an advert on the website and on Facebook, usually sort of three weeks or so before the course, maybe a month before the course, and they basically fill up straight from there, just people traffic on Facebook.
Good, sounds good. We'll talk about some of those channels a bit more, and yeah, the piggyback marketing where you can get into different groups is also quite useful. So which we cover a bit later. That's all really positive. Yeah,
just another one there from Simon about Eventbrite putting up courses up there early. Simon, does I'm not too sure how Eventbrite works. Does Eventbrite publish and promote those courses as well for you?
I don't think they do, but I mean, just because they're there means that if people are searching, they can find them, searching for things to do in Newcastle or something,
right?
Like that. And I actually straddled two clubs, and the experience of one club who tends to put the Eventbrite posting up along with the Facebook posting maybe a few weeks in advance is it can be very hit and miss whether people respond and make the course worthwhile, especially if it's indoors and we need to schedule a venue. The other club that I shoot at tends to put the marketing material, and it's very, very simple marketing material, obviously the Eventbrite and the Facebook, they tend to put it up a quarter in advance, sort of 3 months in advance. And I find that it fills up during that period a lot more effectively than just leaving it to essentially the last minute.
Yeah, I think in terms of that timing, it does vary. So I think if you've got a beginner's course, obviously the further ahead you can plan, almost the better. But if you're running a have a go event, sort of like the big weekend, I mean, it's good to do that long lead in stuff, and we can talk later about approaching media, and it is good for some of, you know, if you've got like still got your county magazines and like Cheshire Life or Shropshire Life or those sorts of things that will work on much longer lead times, but also just be mindful that a lot of people don't commit too soon, and particularly something like archery, if you're doing a have a go day, it can be quite weather dependent. So pre-bookings are good to help mitigate that, but also make sure that in those last month really, you kind of increase the frequency of your plan and pushing messages out there just to make sure that people remember, because a lot of people will make decisions about sort of, you know, only a week or two in advance if they're just kind of going for those sort of things to do type events. Susan's put a post on there about Facebook. Obviously, there's kind of your organic Facebook posts, and we'll talk about Facebook a bit further on in this, but you can also do quite cheap paid for campaigns. And we've done some of those. We did some for the big weekend last year to help some clubs out with some paid for social advertising. It's quite cheap to do, and it can be quite addictive. You can play around with the different criteria for reaching people. But yeah, and you can run little things trying to get people to share, you know, and get club members to share on their Facebook posts. So social media, like I said, could be a whole section on itself in its own really, but we do cover it a bit further on. So if there's anyone else that wants to share anything, then say now, or we'll move on. So I just thought I'd show you really around the preferred marketing channels. I mean, this is on a national level, so obviously we're in a slightly different position to you guys in terms of we look at our communication channels from a national basis. So but we do regularly do communications research with the membership, just to make sure that we know which channels they prefer, which one gets the most traction. So this is from our latest comms research that we did. The colours basically reflect, so I'm sure many of you have been through various webinars where Aaron or Gail will have talked about our different segments within archery, and so I can just sort of, gold is kind of our expert members. There's probably around 2,000 of those in our sport, and they are our hardcore tournament goers. Susan would probably fit into the gold category. And then we've got red, who are also been in sport quite a long time and would have a lot of archery knowledge. And blue ones are sort of the next stage down really. It's not necessarily length of time in the sport, but that they are happier just in their club environment. They want to progress, but they don't necessarily class progression as competing or awards as such. It's just they want to improve their own archery. And then our black member, the black group, is our new members, so they've typically been in the sport less than 18 months. So we split it down into those different groups really, because what we're starting to do is try and tailor content for those different groups. What we found out is archery is a real diverse bunch of people. Everyone wants slightly different things. But what does run through all of the segments is a real desire to improve their own knowledge of the sport, or to improve their progression in the sport, not necessarily just for competition, but just so that they feel like they're making progress. And so Sophie started a new content strand called Improve Your Game, and we've started to try and be a lot more proactive in sharing content, creating content across a whole range of different subjects, across all of the different disciplines, just so that we can start to help people with hints and tips and advice on different things. So that's kind of why we have the different colours. And then across our channels, email is by far the preferred method of communication. for our members, and this is in relation to us sending out our information. This isn't necessarily about getting new members into the sport. Our magazine obviously is still there as a big one. Web updates, less so. Facebook is by far, from archery, in the archery community, the most preferred channel. So where we were talking about before, if you've got limited resources, so you can't cover, as Sophie I'm sure will say, it's pretty hard work staying across. We run Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and staying on top of all of those. They all have slightly different sort of editorial guidelines or and slightly different audiences. It's a pretty mean feat making sure that you're across 3 separate social media platforms. So if you were going to pick one, you'd probably be better picking Facebook as it stands, and it gives you lots of little tricks that you can put your, create your events and for beginners courses and have a goes and share stuff and do nice, cheap, paid for advertising campaigns. Instagram is our fastest growing channel at the minute. It's a much younger audience. We haven't actually done a slide on Instagram, but at the end, if you've got time or if anyone's got any questions on it, Sophie would be happy to talk through that. So just gives you an idea really. So when we go out and ask people what their preferred method of communication is across the membership, that easy email is still by far, and that'll be more fitting into your retaining your existing members more so than attracting new ones. So we'll just touch on media for a moment. That's one of your options for promoting your events, and also for just raising the profile of your club within your local community. Media's changed quite a lot over the years. It's not as easy as it used to be to get local media. As I'm sure you're aware, local newspapers, they've had massive cost cutting and exercising. With moving in the digital age, a lot of advertising revenues have gone online rather than in print, which has taken a hit really. So they don't have as many journalists, so you basically need to make it as easy as possible for them to cover your story. And also it's a bit of a sales pitch now. You used to be able to send an email off to your local newspaper and be guaranteed that they'd cover your story or send someone along, and it's a little bit harder. You've got to work a bit harder now than you used to. So it's really useful to familiarise yourself with who your local newspapers are, and do a bit of digging, find your local journalists and reach out to them. You can do that in lots of different ways. Following them on social media is one of them, and tagging them into things is another. So basically, firstly, you want to make sure that your story is topical and timely. Also, if you know your newspaper is covering certain things, or in the press, women and girls was definitely a sort of hot topic, and still is really. So just making sure that if you're doing a have a go, you can put a story out about wanting to attract more women and girls or more junior members or whatever, and just ringing them up and sort of selling it in and making it sound more interesting than just to have a go, trying to hook it into sort of your current affairs or what's going on at the time. Is there a photo opportunity? So making sure you're inviting them along, or if they can't attend because local reporters are so stretched now trying to cover all the local football matches and all the rest of it, make sure that you take some nice images. We've got on our website there, I've just put links to our DIY PR toolkit. So for the big weekends, we've created sort of some really easy hints and tips to follow about how to approach the media, and also a photography brief. So if the journalist isn't coming around, just the types of things you need to think about to get a decent photo. They're more likely to carry the story if there's a nice photo to go alongside it. And obviously the age-old phrase of a picture tells 1,000 words. So definitely always try and send a good quality image with any sort of request for them to cover the story. Oh, there's definitely a typo there. that's unusual. I was thinking what's unusual or even more unique about the story. That's just trying to tie it into any local or current affairs, or attracting a certain type of audience, or it might be to cover some good news story you're doing in your local community. You might be providing, you might be going into a care home and providing an archery session for them, which press, the local media would love that type of thing. Obviously, mental health is a big thing at the minute, and we know archery is great for mental health. So again, that could be a nice hook for a journalist. If you're running a have a go, you can certainly pitch it as a nice activity to get into to help, you know, people socialise and improve their mental well-being. And that's definitely a hot button at the moment in sport in general and locally, obviously, particularly in COVID-19. And it certainly will be as we start to come out of this. Mental health will be a real hot topic. So any way that we can weave in archery to that, I would definitely recommend. So just we'll circulate these slides, but these toolkits are already on our website. As I alluded to earlier, we are looking at, because we've had to cancel the big weekend for this year, we are looking at what our phase 2 return to sport might look like at the minute, and how we could feasibly help you guys run beginners courses and have a goes while adhering to 2-meter distancing. So that's a whole piece of work that's sort of going on behind the scenes. As soon as we've got that ready, we'll start to share. But then to help with that on the promotional side, we will be creating a very similar toolkit to what we have already for the big weekend, but making it non-big weekend branded, so it's a lot more flexible. So you can use, so you'll be able to download posters, social media, cover photos, that type of thing. We'll do some template PR releases, press releases. We can put some imagery on there for you know, some standard imagery that you can use, and we'll create all that, but non-big weekend branded. It will just be archery branded, so that when the time comes, hopefully, and we can start attracting new members back to our sport, you'll have lots of tools already there to make that as easy as possible for you. But in the meantime, the big weekend stuff is still on there, so it will be a lot of the same thing. We're just going to change the branding and the context slightly. So there you go. That's kind of just a little example of something that we did back in 2016 for Rio. So women and girls was a hot topic back then. So as part of the Team GB announcement, which we did at Meriden Archery Club, we sold into the Sunday Express that at the time we'd seen a significant increase in young female members to Archery GB. Although I wouldn't say the photo completely reflects that with having Patrick in there, it still worked for the sales pitch. So it's just, you know, making sure that you take the time to do your bit of research around which journalist or which newspaper you're trying to attract, and you'll get a sense of that as you follow their coverage, and just trying to hook in wherever you can archery, and if it's got a separate message like this one did around young female members, it got us a bigger piece. So that was a really nice national piece of coverage that we got. And you need to work, like I said, work quite hard. So, you know, give them a call, make sure you do your research, find out who it is, who the journalist is, or sometimes it will just have a generic @sport email address. Send out your press release, send out your sales pitch really, and then make sure you follow up. So the best way to get hold of journalists is to phone them, and also just keep on at them. So don't feel bad to call them again and just check that they're still coming, or because things can change quite quickly in the media world. We've certainly had challenges before where we've set up a press call and then something's happened with football or whatever on that weekend, and it's just completely scuppered our plans. So so that can always happen, but just stay in contact with them and check they're still coming, and phone them up and check they're happy, or whether they're going to run the story. Just stay on their case basically, and that will definitely help you get more coverage. So we talked a little bit about sorry, before I move on, is there anything else on press or media that anyone's got any questions about specifically on the sort of trying to get PR coverage? Or has anyone got any things that they can share?
Yeah, maybe anybody with a good way of how they got archery into the news locally. Maybe not on the back pages, but more in the front pages.
Yes, I can just mention something. Where we've had the most success is actually linking what we're doing back to something that's an event based. So where we've just wanted to promote archery or yeah, I guess archery in general, media have not picked it up because they can't link it to a date or a particular event. So that's something that I know they look out for.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely about trying to create that hook. And also, if you've got any athletes or volunteers, those sort of things, you know, that there's also stories that local media will pick up. So if you've got people at your club who are on any squads or have done well at any national competitions or international competitions, usually those sort of stories are quite easy for the press to put into their, at least in their sports pages. I mean, getting off the sports pages is more tricky. So yeah, just or definitely around volunteers. So a lot of local press will, or local communities will have local volunteer awards and things like that. And I know Susan, I think you've actually been nominated and won some of those as well, which has resulted in press coverage before. So just
yes.
those sorts of things as well are good.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, I cut across you. You carry on. Did you have anything?
Sorry, I had a problem with my mic. I think that's working now.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've certainly had athlete coverage within the local paper, whether that's be for team selection, also radio coverage. So the local radios will definitely pick stuff up. They are so hungry for content, and sometimes content that's a little bit different. So I relatively frequently pop in on for their Friday night sport program. So local radio is a great way to get beginners courses or have a go stuff out, because although local radio is often BBC, they're not allowed strictly advertising, but they're really happy to support local sports. And then local councils and yeah, I guess it is all local councils run annual sport awards, which again can be really great coverage for clubs to just raise the profile in the local area. And that is not just athlete based, that's also volunteer based and club development based. So that's also something really great to look at.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And we have got athletes that, and like Susan said, and the coverage is primarily about the athlete doing well at that event. Just brief the athlete like we try and do with our. So if they are going to do a piece of media, we'll just say, right, can you just make sure you try and get this in, or can you try and promote the big weekend, or can you try and say archery is really inclusive, and to contact, you know, to find your local club through our club finder. It's just subtle references like that you can, like, it's free advertising, and it's quite simple to do. It's just making sure you plan ahead to brief them so they remember really to try and get that plug in during their interview. So if that's everything on media, and if anyone has any questions after this, just ping them through, and we can come back to you with some extra guidance if you need to. So Piggyback Marketing is another really cheap and great way to promote your club. So basically, Piggyback Marketing is where you will team up with another sports club, another company, anyone or anything really, where you're not sort of competing for space, but by working together you're going to get a bigger reach. So you can kind of see there, it could be a school, it could be a community group, local leisure centre, it could be another sports club or business. So I'll talk you through a few of the scenarios where we've done this at a national level, which has worked really well. It's just a really great way to make, well, if you like us, don't have much marketing budget, which I'm sure you have none or minimal, it's a really good way to just get a lot more bang for your buck, really, or to get some free promotion. So places where we've done it quite successfully fairly recently is obviously our big one is with the National Trust. So we created a partnership for them. They do a summer of sport programme, and we've worked with them where we've kind of co-funded Arrows kits going to some of their venues, and then we basically leveraged their PR teams to try and get the message out wider and make sure that archery's featured in any of their kind of media stuff that they do, and we've got some quite good coverage out of that. So and then also round our national tour final, we had a really good relationship with the local council. So that meant that they gave us lots of free advertising space, basically, to promote the national tour final. So it was the first time that we had archery on bus billboards and all sorts of things. So they gave us all the space for free, and we just had to pay a minimal cost to just get it produced. And they also let us utilise their mail outs to all of their residents. We teamed up also with Nottingham Forest Football Club for our national tour launch, which worked really well. We basically utilised some of their players. Patrick Houston went down and gave them an archery, some coaching, and we invited a lot of media to attend, and the presenters had a go, and it all got quite competitive, as it usually does quite quickly in archery. But what it did do was it meant that their PR team as well put the story out, so did we, and also their players and our athletes were tweeting and putting it on their social profiles. So the reach we got from that one activity was much bigger than we could have done alone, and it really worked well. We also did it again with the cricketers for the European launch, and again it was a very similar thing. And again, we got more media coverage, really, because the journalists are sort of like, oh well, we can kill two birds with one stone. We can go down and we can get a story on the archery, and we can also get a story on the footballers or the cricketers, and worked well for both sides. So that's kind of how we've used piggyback marketing, and there's lots of different places we've done it before as well, but mainly the sort of tying in with your local authority, tying in with your local CSP, tying in with your local sports clubs where you might be able to do a have a go for them, and then or have a go at their venue, and they'll promote it to all of their ticket holders, particularly if you've got big local football clubs or rugby clubs or things like that. There's definitely some interesting partnerships that you can create there, and obviously the selling for them is that a lot of these clubs are always looking for things to do. I mean, I used to work in football, I've worked in rugby and horse racing, and we were always trying to sell tickets and more tickets and reach different types of people. So we were always looking for that added activity that we could tag on to our own key events to give our customers a better experience. So like family days and things like that. So it might be worth just tying in with some of your local sports clubs to see, even if it's just taking down your an Arrows kit and doing a have a go. It's amazing how many adults really enjoy doing the have a goes with Arrows kits. We've done numerous days in the Old Market Square in Nottingham with one of our sponsors, and we used to do a massive have a go in the middle of Old Market Square, and we used to get hundreds of people through. We'd be giving out flyers for the national tour final and just giving people a taste of archery. Obviously, for the safety element, we couldn't do the real form at that time, but we took the Arrows kits, and equally children and adults alike absolutely loved it, and it just gives us a real presence in the centre of the city. So that's another option that you could do on a busy Saturday morning, is set up a few arrows kits. Obviously contact your local council first, but take Archery to where the people are. So it's just trying to be creative about different ideas, particularly if you don't have any budget, about what can we do and who can we partner with that will allow us to reach more people for free. Has anyone done anything similar or have any good examples of piggyback marketing? Silence. Okay, we'll move on. Social media. Obviously, this is huge in the world of cheap promotion, really, and we've got Sophie on, so hopefully she'll chip in a bit later if you've got any questions around social media. Obviously, it's a great way to engage with your members and your local community and promote your club. We've already touched on there's different forms of social media, so you can run some fairly inexpensive paid for advertising campaigns. You can set up your events, you can get your members to share it, and just always try and increase your followers. To make sure it's useful to allow people to comment and post on your page, but obviously with that comes some cons. First of all, you've got to be monitoring it and kind of mediating your own sites where possible. I mean, it's less likely for a smaller club that you would get trolled or you'd get negative comments necessarily, because you would hope that your members would come directly to you if they did have an issue. So I think open content for local clubs is probably the way forward, and I don't think there's masses of concern there, but sort of getting negative comments or spamming on your own social media sites. But try and keep a friendly tone. Obviously with social, it's not as formal as maybe if you were emailing people or your communications that go out on your website in a more formal sort of tone. Social media, people definitely want it to stay quite friendly, and just be quite transparent. Try and give your social media accounts a sense of who you are and what they could expect at the club. So we have got a social media guide online, which is on the Big Weekend page. It is slightly out of date, but there are some things that are still quite relevant. The challenge with social media is it moves so fast. So on that guide, we did try and give some really easy guide to setting up your accounts. We published it a couple of years ago, so it is a bit out of date. So some of the versions have changed now in terms of setting it up, but there is still some quite useful information on there, and we are in the process of updating it. So hopefully by the time we are ready to go in phase 2 or phase 3 of getting back to our sport, we will have that updated, and we haven't currently got Instagram in it, so we're going to be working on that in the next few weeks. So obviously, as we mentioned before, there's lots of different platforms to consider. We're going to focus on the key ones. So there's Twitter, which is one of the older ones, along with Facebook. Obviously, Twitter has lots of benefits in that you can tag in. It's really easy to tag in key partners. It's easy to follow and tag in your local media, so that's a good way to get on their radar, or local journalists, and to build up a bit of rapport with them. You're obviously limited to the number of characters that you can use on Twitter, but you can kind of use shortened URLs, and there's a link at the bottom to make your characters so you don't use quite so many characters. Sophie, do you want to step in and talk about Twitter, or do you want to do a summary at the end? She's not right. Yeah, so Twitter is one of the platforms, and it is quite useful. So you can tag in like World Archery, you can share content really easily. So it's quite easy to keep up to date with Twitter. You don't have to put huge amounts of thought into it. There's loads of content on Twitter that you could just retweet every day that makes it look like you're putting regular content out really. So you could follow us, you can just retweet stuff we're putting out, retweet stuff World Archery are doing. If you've got a message that you want to get across, or you've put a funding application in and you want to position yourself as for a particular community project, obviously you can tag in people like Sport England. We quite often will do, for things like the big weekend, we will plan a campaign. So we will send around, we will create some tweets and send them around to partners that they can use to make it really easy. All they have to do is copy and paste. So say for the big weekend, we will create a number of tweets and posts that we want people to promote for us. And then I'll do an email out to all our partners saying it's our big weekend. Please can you start either retweeting us or using this hashtag to try and spread that net further. And that's been quite useful, because obviously if you can get people like Team GB and Paralympics GB, they have a huge following. Parasport are also really good on the disability side, so they're very much about promoting clubs that are really inclusive. So again, they're another one to tag in to your have a goes, particularly if you are really inclusive and can welcome disabled members to your have a goes or to your club. So yeah, just think about what you want to say, and you could even create some tweets and send it to your members and get them to use it on their own social channels, or just ask them to share what you're putting out really. So it's an easy platform to kind of use without a huge amount of resource. Facebook, I'm sure most of you are already familiar with Facebook. Again, as we've already said, they want you to talk to them as if they're your friends rather than more of a business formal tone. You can easily build a strong and loyal following, and you can run lots of different campaigns to try and get people to like and share your certain posts. Again, encouraging your members, really making sure that you've got your social media icons on your website so that people can follow. So just trying to link your platforms together. So on your website, make sure it's quite easy to put a thread to, or at least promote what your social media handles are, so that people can find you on social as well, and vice versa. Put content on that links back to your website. Obviously, you're not restricted on characters on Facebook either, and you can do lots of nice videos. You can do lots of you can either do pre-recorded stuff, or you can do Facebook Live. Just be careful with planning that as well, if you are doing any live content. Or you could get, if you've got athletes in your club, you can get them to take over your channel and lots of different things. Sophie is our social Facebook whiz, so she'll definitely have something to say on this one if she's still with us.
Sorry, my mic decided to not work for some reason.
Oh right, it's all right, just waffled on anyway. So do you want to just give your
obviously during lockdown and things, timings have changed on when's best to post on all the different platforms. So just make sure you do some research on that, because people are obviously looking at social media at different times now compared to before, when people would be looking at mostly during their lunch breaks, before and after work if they're traveling in London, that kind of thing. If you're doing videos, make sure you film it in landscape. That's probably all I can add at this point.
Great. Okay. Like we said, we will update our social media guide. So some of the newer functionalities that have come in since we last created it, we'll try and include in that, and we will get that out before we resume, to help clubs if they need a bit of extra support in social. And other than that, just get in touch with either myself or Sophie as well. We're happy to kind of help anyone through if they want any guidance anywhere on social media. I mean, it's just a massive topic, and we could probably do a separate section on that, really. So just some of the do's and don'ts, which is obviously common sense. So make sure that you are yourself and you are representing your club, so you don't want to give a false impression either, so people kind of know what they're getting when they come. If you're going to commit to a social channel, make sure you do commit to it and you're posting content regularly. I mean, you know, Facebook, we're trying to get something out at least every day. So, but for a club, you know, 2 or 3 times a week at least on Facebook, Twitter, you can post more frequently quite easily, because again, it's just much easier to retweet content. Make sure you're human, have fun with it, but obviously remember, once on social, it's always on social. It's really it's fine to share content from other sources. Again, that can make it a lot, you know, help with the resource implications, and we do that as well. So it's absolutely fine to share our content, World Archery's content. If there's some nice videos from Paralympics GB on mental health awareness, we've got Hazel, who's featured in UK Sports One at the minute. So just keep an eye out for things that you can share on your own channels. Also, there's loads of great videos out there if you look around on going back to our improve your game content. So in that members would like to improve their own or progress through the sports, you know, there's a whole heap of content out there that you can then share. But I would say just make sure you watch it. Don't just share something unless you watched it all to the end, or listen to the interview to the end, because otherwise there could be a surprise in there that you necessarily weren't expecting. Photos are great. Obviously, anything that we put on that has a photo in it generally gets more comments or traction. People are very visual. Similar with videos. Again, try not to make videos really long, because you lose people quite quickly. Yeah, and just have fun with it, really. In terms of don't, as I mentioned, don't retweet or share stuff that you haven't watched or fully read, because quite often there can be things in there that you might not share the same sentiment, or you don't want to endorse things that if somebody's put a throwaway comment in there that doesn't quite fit with your own brand for your club. Don't post too much as well. You can generally start to see, so it's quite easy on all of the social media channels to see how much interaction you've had and which post people are reacting to positively. So just keep a check on that, and stuff that people like, post more of, and stuff that hasn't necessarily done so well, just keep a note of, so that you don't do too much of that type of thing. We certainly try and keep an eye on it in terms of all the different disciplines and types of stuff. So some of the more governance-y stuff that we post, or some of the stuff we have to post for partners, that doesn't necessarily get the same amount of traction as other things that we post. So it's just about balance, really, and the more you do it, the better a feel you'll get for it. So we'll run through sponsorship quickly. Sponsorship is obviously very much a two-way thing, and it's a difficult, it's a challenging area to be in, really, sponsorship, particularly in this day and age. I think the likelihood really now is a lot of sponsorship partnerships are really value in kind, or just that kind of piggyback marketing effort where you can both help each other out. Although, having said that, in the local community, local businesses are much more likely to support their local community than they are necessarily a national governing body like us. So don't let that put you off, because actually a lot of businesses will be spending their marketing budgets locally now, because it's a good thing to do. local communities expect their local business to support them. So it's just about making sure that you position yourself as well as you can against your local football clubs and things like that. So there's a list really there of things that you can offer them, and some of them are quite obvious around your logos printed on your club tops and that type of thing, on your website, including them in your social media posts, that type of thing. And then there's other stuff which actually we find works really well for our partners, and the stuff that they're really interested in is things like holding events at their venues, giving their staff a have a go. So we've done that for a number of our partners, not always with the real form of archery either. It's taking arrows kits in. You can quite quickly do little games for staff, and they absolutely love it. So that's quite a hot button for companies at the minute, is employee retention and things like that. So archery works really, really well in that sort of environment. Also, volunteering opportunities. A lot of local businesses now are trying to get their staff to volunteer time back. Volunteering is a key thing, and it could be an option for you to offer volunteering opportunities to that local business. And anything CSR is the corporate social responsibility. So each business most businesses now will be thinking about how they are regarded in the local community, as I mentioned before. So it's just any sort of association with events that you're running that will give them a nicer feel in the community they're likely to support. So for instance, if you do go into any care homes and do some arrows archery sessions, or supporting local primary schools or anything like that, local businesses quite often like to piggyback off that, so they can be seen to be doing something good within the community. And then obviously what they can offer you in return is either money or kit or discounts for whatever the business does, facilities to hold events if you need that, and obviously the key one is access to potential new members. So again, utilising their marketing channels, and also their staff are potentially new members for you as well, so they can send out emails to their staff and things. So there's quite a lot that you can do in sponsorship, which again, it's taking a creative approach and trying to make sure that you're thinking about how you can stand out from other sports clubs or other sponsorship opportunities in your area, really. But I would say that a lot of businesses now, it's more about value in kind. So that kind of, what can you offer us in return for helping each other out, really, and they may help support you with some local programs, or if you're trying to for instance, if we've been running some adaptive equipment sessions, and Kieran's worked really hard, and we've been looking at maybe trying to produce adaptive kit bags and things. So that could be a real hook for companies, because to be more inclusive in sport. So that, and it would be an interesting PR story. The business might want to support something like that because it's got a real feel-good factor as well of doing good, and it's interesting from a sort of technical perspective in terms of how can you actually adapt archery equipment so that anybody could do the sport whatsoever. So it's just trying to think creatively, really, about what you can offer that company, and what you might get back in return. Is there any questions on sponsorship or social? Because I forgot to stop that. Has anyone got any sponsors that work well, or any sort of tricks that they've done that have helped them get some sponsorship or partners? Okay, we'll move on.
Sorry, so from I'll just throw in my own club.
Okay. Can't hear you, Aaron, if you are talking.
Hello. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what I did there. Most of the sponsorship that we've had as for my club, and this is a hockey club, has been through members and their family and friends. So, you know, just putting it out to your members that you're looking for sponsorship and having some kind of package as well. You know, we put a little bit out saying, you know, a couple of £100 package gives you this, whereas if you want to go the whole hog and sponsor the whole team or the whole club shirts, then, you know, it costs this amount. And we've been very fortunate for the last few years. None of the members have had to pay for any shirts because we've had that sponsorship come in and do that. And as Sarah said, you know, as long as you know, you give them space and time in your articles on your website or your members, then they're more happy to do that. Yeah, so ask the question, really. Ask the question of your membership. That's the first place to start, definitely, before seeking out anything else.
Yeah, that's a good point, Aaron, actually, because a lot of organisations nowadays as well will, in terms of that employee retention, a lot of big organisations like some of the banks and things like that will have a flexible benefit for employees that they can they'll match fund fundraising efforts. So if your club is doing a fundraising effort for a particular thing, then a lot of companies will offer match funding for that type of thing, or they will ask, you know, they'll ask their employees to nominate clubs and projects that they'll look to support. So that is a good point, Aaron. Okay, so probably one of the easier ones to navigate is the good old-fashioned leaflet and poster. So we have we already have posters for the big weekend, and as I mentioned earlier, we are redesigning all of these and we'll make them editable so that when you do come out of the traps after COVID-19 and try and get as many new members as possible, you will have something that you can just download and print. It won't be big weekend branded, it will just be Archery generic, and we are looking at what imagery, you know, how we can tailor them. We'll give you a few options so that if you are looking with different imagery, so if you are looking for more junior members, we'll create something that will have a junior version. If you're looking, you know, if your target audience is older adults, then we'll have a poster that reflects that. So we're just working our way through that, and we're sorry that we don't have it ready for today, because our initial plan was that we would have it all ready for today, but the news about returning to sport came quicker than we necessarily anticipated. So for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been working flat out, as some of our volunteers on this call will know, on just trying to get that guidance out. So we're a bit further behind on this element of it, but it will be ready in time for hopefully when we move into the next phase of returning to archery. And yeah, just make sure the power of poster is still certainly there, even in the digital world. So things like making sure you're getting them in the doctor's surgeries, your community centres, in Sainsbury's on their poster boards, all of that kind of stuff. It all helps to get your message out. I don't think with any of this, any one channel wins. You know, a good marketing plan will use multiple routes to try and get the message across, and that's what will help drive numbers at your events or to your club. So we are also reviewing and creating our Try Archery leaflet, which we used to have a few years ago. I think we've actually given them all out now. So we're revamping our Try Archery leaflet, and we will be ordering and printing a number of those again. So clubs can ask for us to send out, and we send out sort of wads of them, or we can put it online for you to print your own. The reason I've got that graphic there really is we are starting to think a bit differently about how we are promoting the sport, particularly in the current sort of climate. It's not just about doing archery. There are so many more things to our sport. And our old Try Archery leaflet, when I looked at it, came to review it, it's very much like join archery. It's really inclusive, and then that you can do field, kite, flout, all of the different disciplines and this, and it was just a bit too much. So what we are looking at is starting to think more about what archery as an activity can give people on the social side, on the well-being side, and that infographic there really does start to help get that across. So it's not just about the activity, it's about how it's going to make people feel and think want to join a club. So our new Try Archery leaflet will go down that route a lot more, so it'll be a lot more pictorial, and we'll be pulling out, really trying to sell the benefits of why you should do archery, not just for the activity of shooting the target, but all the other things that we know it brings. So yeah, we will have that toolkit ready, and as soon as we do, we'll make sure that we circulate it to clubs and people and put it on our website, so it can all be downloaded, and you'll be able to edit it so for your own club, and then print it as you wish. So our plan is just to try and make it as easy and as cheap for everybody to really get out and promote archery, because we do know that obviously during this pandemic, new members are going to be much harder to get. Is there anything? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, was that Chris? Oh, I can't hear you, Chrissy. Chrissy, if you were trying to say something, we couldn't hear you, or maybe just pop it in the chat box. No. Okay. If there was anything, Chrissy, just let us know afterwards, and we can address it. Or we'll have an opportunity at the end just to chat over anything that we haven't covered that you would like us to cover in the next one. Now my computer's stuck. Okay, so we've kind of talked about all the different options to us. So really, it's just about trying to get it into a coherent plan. So here's a very basic one with the months, and you can identify who in your club might be able to be responsible for those certain actions, just to spread the load a bit, so it doesn't always come down to the same person. So just type down your tactics and your actions and which channels you're going to focus on and who you're trying to attract and all of that, and then just try and get it into a very basic spreadsheet, really, because it will just make it easier to stay on track of what you're doing and when. So just outline what you want to do, who's going to be responsible, and at what time, really, and it's just basically as easy as that. You don't have to overcomplicate it, and I would suggest you don't try and overcomplicate it too much, because otherwise you'll fall into the trap of having an all singing and all dancing plan that just sits on the shelf. So just make it quite simple and easy to understand and follow. So just really, again, in your own time, just think about what are the marketing actions going to be for your club moving forward. Are they smart? So can do they underpin your club's ambition or your vision? Are you using the best channels for the people that you're trying to reach? And who have you got resource-wise in your club that will be able to help you to deliver them? And really, they're kind of your basic things. So we won't necessarily do all that now, but it is something for you to take away and think about afterwards. And then evaluation, probably every marketeer's least favourite bit, but it is really important to just keep on track of what's working and what isn't working. And there are no rights and wrongs in marketing, really. But it is just useful to make sure that you are evaluating what you're doing and checking whether it works or not, and tweaking it accordingly. And again, this can be very basic or as complicated as you would like to make it, but there are some easy methods that you can use. Obviously, for media coverage and things like that, you'll know if your article has been printed or if it's been online. So it's just a case of keeping a note of that, what stories worked, which ones were they not so interested in. It will just help you refine your offer in the future. And then simple things that you can do is, you know, ask your members how they heard about your club when they join, whether that was through Facebook, whether it was a nice PR piece that you had in your local newspaper, all of that kind of stuff. You can do regular surveys. So we do surveys across a number of platforms, things like SurveyMonkey, or, you know, you can easily put together quite a simple basic survey just to check how they're hearing things, particularly your existing members. And then just keep an idea of what budget you have and if it's being spent wisely. You know, print nowadays is quite cheap, but it will still be an expenditure that you'll need to do unless you're gonna use somebody's personal printer, but there's still a cost to that element. So just making sure that you keep track of how much you are spending. Obviously nowadays there's quite a lot of free things that you can do to promote your club. So there's just really a list there of kind of simple ways that you can evaluate what you're doing. And it's just, you know, social media and things like that. We've got Google Analytics now for your website. All social channels have some analytical elements to them, and we've got a spreadsheet where we kind of review open rates of our e-zines regularly, and we look at our analytics on our social media channels and just check which ones are, you know, which was our highest post that month and what type of content it was and things. So you can make it as complicated or as simple as possible, but it is useful to just make sure you go back and you're constantly evaluating what's working and what's not, really. And then just to recap, just make sure you know what your vision is and who you are going to try and attract. Create your basic plan that make it a lot more effective. Use all the different channels that you have available, but be mindful of what resource you've got. So don't spread yourselves too thin. Like I said before, you know, you can lose a lot of time to things like social media. So just, you know, if you're only going to pick one, I would recommend picking Facebook at this point, unless you're a university club or you're trying to reach that younger market, which obviously Instagram at the minute is the biggest one. You've also got things like TikTok that's emerging over COVID-19, but again, just be careful that, you know, any funky videos that you did on TikTok to attract younger people, when they come to your club, if that's not what you know, your sort of brand is when you get there, or the experience is, then you can sometimes portray yourself in a way that isn't true to your own club ethos, really. Make sure that you keeping your objectives smart where you can. Use your different channels, use people's strengths. So in your clubs, try and find out if you've got any marketeers in there. You're bound to have, because loads of people in life are marketeers. And just, you know, try and spread it where you can, and just think of all the easy wins that you can make. And like I said, most of you will be doing a lot of this anyway. It's just about trying to put it into a more formalized framework. And that's it, really. So if there's any questions or areas that we haven't covered today, then and things that you'd like to cover in the future, we will obviously make all of the slides available. We will create the toolkits, which should help you when the time comes. We're always creating content for that Improve Your Game series, so feel free to use that where you like on your own channels. Yeah, so is there anyone with any questions?
You've put them all to sleep, Sarah.
I know, I've put myself to sleep. It's definitely right.
Whilst we're waiting for either someone to come forward or for any chat questions to come through, as I said at the beginning, the recording will be made available on our YouTube page, and then we'll link it from our website as well. Slides we'll send out to you directly for signing up for today, and also they'll be available on the website as well. So feel free to pass them on to other people in your club. So if anybody does have any questions and they wanted to unmute themselves now, then now is the time to do that, and I'm sure Sarah and colleagues will be able to answer it.
I would say as well, Aaron, which we haven't really talked about, is the event finder on our website. Did you want to have a quick, just let people know about that? So as we move forward and we start to promote these have-a-goes again, just, you know, how we can utilise our own website, and maybe the open data initiative that could be coming in.
Yeah, sure. A few years ago, the government started going down a route of what they call open data, which is trying to get information out there that is non-personal information that people can use in a better way, and try and find innovative ways to do it. And where that reflects, or where that lands with sport and leisure, is that, you know, I'm sure you guys have used things like Just Eat and Deliveroo and all those types of things. And you've booked hotels, you've booked flights and things like that. You can do that from the comfort of your own home or on your mobile device, wherever you may be. So what they want to try and do with sport and leisure is to get those opportunities available to book and pay for online. So last year we started looking into this, and we've gone halfway there. So we've asked clubs to register have-a-goes, beginners courses, etc. in the membership portal, and they then are shared on our website, because a lot of the time when people approach us or phone us or email us, they want to know where their nearest club is, but they're not necessarily totally interested in just that information. They want to know when is the next opportunity they can pick up a bow and arrow. And lots of clubs, as we've talked about already, have lots of interest. So it may be that you've just filled up your beginner's course or you have a go, and you necessarily don't have a space just right now when that next person has contacted you. So as well as the club finder, we have been populating an event finder as well. And at the moment, it's got nothing on it. When you click on it, it says all events are postponed. But we've had lots and lots of clubs who have registered their beginners courses and have-a-goes, and that means that people know exactly when those sessions are. It gives them a name of somebody that they can contact. You know, all of you wear multiple hats, I'm sure. We've already talked about that as well. You know, someone who's organising the beginners courses or the have-a-goes can have that direct contact. And the next phase to that will be a rollout of the system where you can and this is optional, you can use the system to collect money and take bookings and manage that in a much more seamless way. And that's the open data bit that we're trying to push forward, and it will really help connect people with archery. So as Sarah said, fingers crossed we get back to some kind of normality. It may not be this year, it may be next year, we just don't know at the moment. But when we get to a point where you're putting on beginners courses and have-a-goes, etc., it'd be really good to see them populate that map. Registering those courses is mandatory, so you don't have to put it in your minutes anymore. You can just register them on the membership portal. Making them available to the general public to see is optional. Okay.
Yeah, good. And hopefully the step after that will be that it will populate all the kind of things to do finders, things like the Parasport website, particularly if your facilities are accessible for disabled people. Parasport already run a function on their website where you can register your club or event on there, and they'll promote it as well, and they do club of the month and things like that. So I would recommend you go onto the Parasport website and promote your club if you are in a position where you are fully inclusive. So there's lots of ways that you can help promote your club through partner channels, I guess. The last thing really is just say we've got obviously Vicky on the call, who is our magazine editor, so definitely keep sending in your stories to us for our magazine and for our e-zines. We like to definitely try and get that community stories out into the magazine. It is the members mag, so please do utilise us to shine a light on any of the good work that you are doing, and Vicky is always willing to do interviews on volunteers and clubs, and I think Vicky is planning a club spotlight as we move forward with the mag, so just touch base with her. It's either editor@archerygb.org and you can get her through, or Vicky. All our contact details are on the website, and obviously again Sophie is there for any social media advice. She's certainly the expert in that area. So yeah, we're here if you need us. If you've got any questions, just drop us a line. We'll share the slides. We'll try and get our toolkits out and ready to help support you where we can. And if we haven't covered something you'd like to cover in a bit more detail, just drop us a note and we'll try and arrange something. Cover it off.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out to be with us this afternoon, especially considering it is a bright blue sky out there. So hopefully you're all going to run outside now and take advantage of that weather. So thank you very much for joining us. Anybody that needs anything, just please do drop us a note and we're here for you. But that brings us to the end of the session, and yeah, thanks very much, and see you soon.